Hello, thanks for staying with us on BERNAMA today. You're speaking to me, I'm speaking to Geeta Kandya, this is Elaine Rablaw, and we'll be speaking about intellectual property as a whole. But the last time that Geeta was here, we spoke about licensing and how to make your IP work for you, how to make it, how to monetize it. And today we're talking about the franchising part of things. And how is that different? I think just a quick recap. When the last time that we spoke about making your intellectual property work for you in terms of monetizing, we talked about charging premium pricing, licensing the rights, but there's also franchising of the business. How is that different from the earlier ones that we've mentioned before?
Okay, so thanks Elaine to have me over. Franchising is another way to monetize intellectual property rights. Franchising means you utilize the intellectual properties that the business already has, allow someone to use the intellectual property. So that's similar to licensing. You allow them to use it. Yep. But franchising is different from licensing in the sense that not just the intellectual property rights, you also ask them to run the business exactly the way you run the business.
Right.
So you duplicate the business really fast.
But licensing doesn't necessarily mean that you would duplicate the business model.
That's right. So licensing is allowing someone to use intellectual property rights for various reasons, and monetizing it is that they pay you a license fee.
Right.
Franchising has a license. You're also licensing, but you're also asking them to follow your standard operating procedure.
Okay.
So the reason it's really good and a fast way to make money and make your brand well known is because it's someone else's capital being invested in the business and them starting up different franchises, different outlets. And the more your business spreads in terms of having presence elsewhere, either in different areas or different countries, your brand is then known to the public in that country. But the goodwill and reputation in that brand still comes to you as the business owner and the IP owner.
Right. I think if I was one of the franchise owner, if I ever had something to franchise, I think my main concern was in terms of the ability to maintain the quality of what my brand represents.
So they say when a business becomes a franchise, the business owner's role changes.
Right.
It becomes a franchisor, and as a franchisor, you become more of a trainer because you then train all your franchisees to maintain the quality of business. You're also training them to run the business in a profitable manner, the way you had run your business. So that role changes, and you also become more of you monitor and you enforce if they're not following the franchise terms and so on.
Okay.
So an example, a local example I could bring so everyone relates to that would be Nelson's Corn in a Cup.
That's right. I didn't know it was local, and I didn't know it's been around for such a long time.
Yeah, that's right. So since 1985, and the story behind it is really interesting. So Dato' Nelson Kwok always talks about it. He started out as a toy business.
Right.
He had an outlet selling toys, and a third party wanted to, utilize a little space selling corn. Say, can you sell corn on my behalf and take shares of that profit?
Okay.
And ironically, the corn was hot. Everyone wanted to buy corn. And then he revolutionized it in the sense that instead of selling corn cobs, he scraped it all off and put it into a cup. So Corn in a Cup came about.
He's just capitalizing on us, you know, being a little bit lazy and just not wanting to have to like chew off a cob. And it's just so simple. Just scoop it into your mouth.
Yeah, that's right. It's so unsexy to bite it off a cob. But what's interesting is you're selling toys, and that has a segmented market range. And then you sell corn. Almost everyone eats corn.
Yes.
So it was great, and the fact that the corn, it was the side business in a main took and the side business outgrew, and he saw the potential in that.
Right.
So now he owns 800, well, there are 800, because you don't own a franchise, the franchisee owns the franchise, right?
Right.
So, but he has 800 franchise outlets in 16 countries.
Wow, there you go. This goes to show that whatever you're doing right now, if you have a spark of idea and you take it on and you pursue that, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
For you to be able to have a new venture.
And it's a corn in a cup. You know, how basic is that?
I don't know. It can't get as basic as that. But let's talk about another brand. Talk about Hello Kitty, foreign brands.
Yeah. So franchise. So that's not so much of a franchise. That goes back to license.
Right.
But it's giving an example of how a brand came up with something really creative. Well, arguable, right?
Well, it's successful. Let's put it this way.
So it's interesting the history on how we came up with it, and then what the company did in terms of taking it all around the world.
So that's not a franchise. So what would that be?
That would be a license.
Okay.
So they came up that there's license, there's copyright in the way Hello Kitty looks, the creative version she was created. The brand Hello Kitty is a trademark. Any cartoons or any animation around Hello Kitty would be copyright. It's copyright net. So those are both intellectual property rights. So what happened here is that Sanrio, the company in Japan that created Hello Kitty, did a customer survey in 1970, and they actually asked the creative team to do a survey to find out what customers like. Out of all the popular cartoons in Japan, what is the most popular? And they found that cats, dogs and bears were the most popular.
And back in the 70s, they already knew this, and that's why cat videos are so popular.
yeah, and Garfield.
That's right.
So, and then you've got the creative team working on that, and on the survey, and they found that those three are the most popular. Then they got a creative team working on designing cats, dogs and bears. And then they selected as characters, and they selected one, which was Hello Kitty, that they found stood out among all the designs.
Right.
And 2 dots, 1 button nose, and no mouth. Hello Kitty has no mouth. And they created a story behind her, and she's got an enlarged face. And that became extremely popular, not just with young adults, with kids. So it became
across the board.
Across the board, yes. You know, not even young adults. Adults who are 40-something, 50-something also buying Hello Kitty products.
Too.
So then the business then took off when they realized that, okay, let's allow everyone to manufacture products using Hello Kitty since everyone likes it.
So that's selling your licensing rights?
That's, licensing your creative design, so the copyright and the brand Hello Kitty.
Right.
And you've got now Hello Kitty on toilet paper, on vacuum cleaners, on hair dryers, on
everything that is completely possible that you can think of. Apparently there's even unsavory items.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things they don't allow, which are guns and drugs and so on, but
I can imagine a Hello Kitty gun.
It might be a toy gun, but there isn't even a toy gun. But the point is they make in 2014, they made $7 billion US.
Wow.
Majority were from licensing the rights.
So that literally means it's sort of like not doing anything, you're just allowing people to use the rights.
Yeah, so there's 2 things you would be doing, would be quality control, like you said, because that would tarnish the brand.
Right.
And the second thing is enforcement. It's very important as the IP owner to also enforce, to make sure that you're taking action against counterfeit products. Because then people wouldn't want to license the rights because you're not taking action against all the fake products that are around.
So again, your roles change the moment you create something and you allow it to be licensed, or you sell it or franchise it. Your role as a producer then changes already.
That's right.
So, which means you have to gain different kind of business aspect or business
acumen. You will grow, right? I mean, you push yourself and then you grow in these new skills that you will gain as the business grows.
And you were talking about another brand, I think Microsoft and Nokia.
So we're talking about licensing and monetizing your intellectual property rights. What's interesting is big telcos also do it. Even though you would think that they would be able to do it in-house. Microsoft and Nokia in 2011 gave away most of their rights to some patents to a patent investment company, which would then assess their patents and then license or sold the patents, and revenue from that exercise from the patent investment company then goes to Microsoft and Nokia. So some of the licenses, 30% of the revenue came to Microsoft and Nokia. So they were using a third party to analyze your business and then see what you're not using, and let's make money from third parties using it.
Right. So essentially, I think if we have to wrap it in like one sentence, what would your advice be with regards to how to monetize your intellectual property? So
monetizing intellectual property only comes in if you know what assets you have. So main thing would be understand your business strategically.
Understand your business?
Yeah. Okay. And then see what assets you have, and then be very strategic of what assets you are using, what assets can definitely grow when you let someone else use it for a certain money.
All right.
Fee.
Sounds great. And look for a consultant that may be able to advise you accordingly. So that's all the time that we have talking about intellectual property or monetizing intellectual property. We will take a short breather right now. We'll be back with more stories. Bye for now.
Thank you.